I was 24 years old when my mother looked me straight in the eyes across that polished mahogany table and said, "We're cutting you off, sweetie. Completely." My father nodded beside her, arms crossed. My older brother Derek smirked from the corner of the room, clearly enjoying the show. This wasn't just a conversation. This was an execution. A family meeting they'd called specifically to humiliate me in front of everyone who mattered. "You've been living off us for too long," my mother continued, her voice dripping with disappointment. "While Derek built his career, you've been— what? Playing around with your little art projects?" I could feel my grandmother's eyes on me from across the room. Aunt Linda whispered something to Uncle George. They were all watching, waiting for me to break down, to beg, to cry. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a sad smile. A knowing smile. "Is that all?" I asked calmly. My mother blinked, clearly thrown off by my reaction. She'd expected tears, maybe even anger. "Excuse me? I asked if that's all you wanted to say," I repeated, leaning back in my chair. "Because if we're done here, I have somewhere to be." Derek laughed. "Somewhere to be? You don't even have a job, Mia." "Oh, but I did have somewhere to be, and they were about to find out exactly where." "Actually," I said, standing up and grabbing my purse, "I have a meeting with my lawyer in an hour. But don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow." The room fell silent as I walked toward the door. "Lawyer?" My father finally spoke. "What lawyer?" "What are you talking about?" I paused at the doorway, turning back one last time. "You'll see." The next morning, I arrived at the family estate at exactly 9 a.m. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I'd waited 3 years for this moment, and now that it was here, I felt nothing but calm. I walked into the dining room where they were all having breakfast. The same people from yesterday, the same judgmental faces, except this time, there was someone new sitting at the head of the table. Mr. Harrison, my grandfather's lawyer. "What is he doing here?" my mother demanded, her coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips. "I invited him," I said simply, taking a seat across from her. "We have some business to discuss." Derek rolled his eyes. "More drama, Mia. Really?" "No drama," Mr. Harrison interrupted, opening his briefcase and pulling out a thick folder. "Just facts. Legal facts." My father leaned forward. "Harrison, what is this about?" "It's about your father's will," the lawyer said, his voice steady and professional. "Specifically the part that concerns Mia." I watched my mother's face drain of color. "My father's will was read 3 years ago. There's nothing left to discuss." "Actually, Mrs. Morrison, there is." Mr. Harrison pulled out a document and placed it on the table. "This is a sealed addendum that your father requested be opened only under specific circumstances." "What circumstances?" Aunt Linda asked nervously. Mr. Harrison looked directly at me. "When Mia turned 24 and had graduated from college with honors." "Which she did. 6 months ago." The room erupted. Everyone started talking at once, but I just sat there watching them scramble. Watching them realize that something was very, very wrong with their perfect plan. "This is ridiculous," Derek shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "Grandfather wouldn't have left her anything without telling us." But he did, and they were about to learn exactly what. "Shall I continue?" Mr. Harrison asked, looking at me. I nodded. "Please do." My mother's hands were trembling now. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat and began reading from the document. "To my granddaughter Mia, who has shown more strength and character than anyone in this family gives her credit for, I leave the following." My brother Derek was pacing now, his face red with anger. My mother sat frozen, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of the table. The lakeside property in Ashwood, valued at approximately $2.3 million. The art collection currently stored in the Vermont facility, valued at $1.8 million. And finally, a trust fund of $5 million, accessible immediately upon the reading of this addendum. The silence that followed was deafening. That's not possible," my father whispered. "That's nearly $10 million. $9.1 million to be exact," Mr. Harrison corrected. Aunt Linda gasped. Uncle George looked like he might faint. but it was my mother's face that I couldn't look away from. Pure shock mixed with something else, betrayal, as if her own father had stabbed her in the back. "There must be a mistake," she said, her voice barely audible. "My father wouldn't do this. He wouldn't give everything to her and leave Derek with nothing." "Derek received his inheritance 3 years ago," Mr. Harrison reminded her. "As did you, Mrs. Morrison. Your father was very clear about his wishes." Derek stopped pacing and pointed at me. "You knew about this. You've known all along, haven't you? That's why you didn't care yesterday when they cut you off." I met his eyes calmly. "I found out 2 weeks ago, when Mr. Harrison contacted me." 2 weeks? My mother's voice cracked. "You've known for 2 weeks and said nothing?" "You called a family meeting to humiliate me," I replied softly. "I thought I'd return the favor." "You manipulative little—" Derek started, but Mr. Harrison cut him off. "I'd be careful with your next words, Mr. Morrison. This is a legal proceeding." But the real bomb hadn't dropped yet, and when it did, everything they thought they knew about grandfather would shatter. Mr. Harrison wasn't finished. He pulled out another document, this one looking older, more worn. "There's something else your grandfather wanted Mia to have. Something he wrote specifically for this moment." He handed me a letter, my grandfather's handwriting. I recognized it immediately from all the birthday cards he'd sent me over the years. The ones my mother always said were, "Just being polite." "Would you like me to read it, or would you prefer to do it yourself?" Mr. Harrison asked gently. My hands trembled as I took the letter. "I'll read it." I opened it slowly, and the first line made my throat tight. "My dearest Mia, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and your family has finally shown their true colors." My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. I continued. "I've watched them treat you like you were worthless for years. Your mother was jealous of the bond we shared. Your brother resented that you were my favorite. They wanted you to fail, to prove that their way was the only way." "That's not true," my mother protested, standing up. "I never wanted her to fail. I'm her mother." "Sit down, Rebecca," my father said quietly, pulling her back into her chair. I kept reading, but I knew better. I saw your talent, your kindness, your strength. So I made sure that when the time came, you'd have the resources to live your life on your own terms, not theirs." Derek laughed bitterly. "Of course. The golden granddaughter gets everything while I worked my ass off for scraps." "You got $3 million and the company shares," I reminded him. "That's hardly scraps. It's not about the money," he shouted. "It's about him choosing you over me. Over all of us." The letter continued, and the next part made everyone in that room go completely silent. "And Mia, there's one more thing they don't know. One more secret I've kept to protect you." My heart stopped. "What secret?" Mr. Harrison looked at me with sad eyes. "Perhaps we should discuss the rest privately." But I shook my head. "No, they wanted to cut me off in front of everyone. They can hear everything." I took a deep breath and continued reading my grandfather's letter out loud. "The truth is, Mia, your mother and I had a falling out years before you were born. She made choices I couldn't support. She married your father not for love, but for his family's connections. She spent her entire life chasing status and money." My mother's face went pale. "Stop reading that. Right now." But I didn't stop. "And when you were born, Rebecca tried to keep you from me. She didn't want you to know me because she was afraid you'd see through her facade, afraid you'd become like me instead of like her." "That's a lie!" my mother screamed, tears streaming down her face. "He's lying." "He was a bitter old man who never forgave me for living my own life." "Was he bitter?" I asked, looking up at her. "Or was he just honest?" Uncle George shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should take a break. This is getting too personal." "Too personal?" I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. "Yesterday you all sat here and watched them tear me apart. You said nothing. You did nothing. And now you want a break?" Aunt Linda looked down at her plate. "We thought they were doing what was best for you, Mia. Tough love." "Tough love," I repeated slowly. "Is that what we're calling public humiliation now?" Derek slammed his hand on the table again. "You know what? Keep the money. Keep all of it. I don't need anything from a grandfather who clearly lost his mind in his final years. But then Mr. Harrison spoke, and his words changed everything. There's actually a condition to Mia's inheritance that we haven't discussed yet. My head snapped toward him. A condition? He nodded. Your grandfather specified that if your family attempted to contest this will, or if they caused you any harm, emotional, physical, or financial, within the first year of receiving your inheritance, everything would be redirected to charity. Every single dollar. The room exploded again. My mother was sobbing. Derek was cursing. My father just sat there looking defeated. And me? I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. They'd tried to break me yesterday. Today I'd shown them I was already broken free. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Derek stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Aunt Linda and Uncle George made awkward excuses and left quickly, not making eye contact with anyone. My father sat motionless, staring at nothing. Only my mother remained standing, her mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. "How could you do this to me?" she whispered. "I'm your mother." "You cut me off yesterday," I reminded her quietly. "You told me I was worthless, that my art was just playing around. You did this to yourself." "I was trying to motivate you," she cried. "To make you stronger, to push you to succeed. By humiliating me in front of the entire family?" I stood up, gathering my things. "That's not motivation, Mom. That's cruelty." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Mia, please. We can fix this. We can start over." "No," I said simply. "We can't." Mr. Harrison packed his briefcase. "I'll have the paperwork ready for you to sign by Friday, Miss Morrison. The properties and accounts will be transferred into your name within 30 days. As we walked toward the door, my mother called out one last time. "Your grandfather poisoned you against me. He filled your head with lies." I stopped, turning back to face her. Grandfather didn't need to say anything. "Mom, I've had 24 years to see who you really are." The look on her face broke something inside me, but I couldn't let her see it. I couldn't let any of them see that I was still that little girl who just wanted her family to love her. I walked out of that house with Mr. Harrison beside me. The morning sun felt warmer than it had in years. "Your grandfather was very proud of you," Mr. Harrison said as we reached his car. "He told me once that you were the only one in the family with a soul." I smiled sadly. I wish he was here to see this. "Oh, he saw it coming," the lawyer chuckled. "Why do you think he planned everything so perfectly?" 3 days later, I was at the lakeside property in Ashwood for the first time. The house was massive, beautiful, and completely mine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the water, hardwood floors that had been lovingly maintained. It smelled like pine and memories I'd never had the chance to make. I was standing on the back deck when I heard a car pull up. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, panic fluttered in my chest. What if it was Derek? What if he'd come to cause trouble? But when I walked around to the front, I saw someone I hadn't seen in over a year. My cousin Sarah. She was 26, Aunt Linda's daughter, and the only person in the family who'd ever treated me like I mattered. "Surprise," she said softly, holding up a bottle of wine. "I heard you inherited paradise. Thought you might want some company." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Sarah, you came." "Of course I came." She walked up the steps and pulled me into a hug. "I'm sorry I didn't defend you at that meeting. I wasn't there. Mom told me about it yesterday, and I've been furious ever since." We went inside, and I poured us both glasses of wine. We sat on the floor in the empty living room, surrounded by boxes I hadn't unpacked yet. "They're saying terrible things about you," Sarah said carefully. "Derek's telling everyone you manipulated Grandpa, that you were only nice to him to get his money." I laughed bitterly. "Of course he is. But I know that's not true." Sarah looked at me seriously. "You were the only one who visited him every week at the end. The only one who actually cared." "He was the only one who ever believed in me," I said quietly. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "There's something else you should know. Something I heard my mom talking about on the phone last night. My stomach tightened. What? Your mother is planning something. I don't know what exactly, but she's been meeting with lawyers. Different lawyers, not the family ones. I set down my wine glass. She's going to contest the will. That's what I think, Sarah confirmed. And if she does, everything goes to charity, I finished. Mr. Harrison warned me. Grandfather made sure of that. Sarah leaned forward, her voice urgent. Mia, you need to be careful. My mom said your mother is desperate. She's convinced that if she can prove Grandpa wasn't in his right mind when he made that addendum, she can overturn everything. But he was completely lucid, I protested. He made that addendum 2 years before he died. His doctors can confirm he was mentally sound. I know that. You know that. But your mother doesn't care about facts. She cares about winning. Sarah pulled out her phone. She's hired Gerald Hutchinson. My blood ran cold. Gerald Hutchinson was the most ruthless estate attorney in the state. He'd built his reputation on destroying families and winning impossible cases. When did she hire him? I asked, my voice barely steady. 3 days ago, right after the meeting. I stood up and started pacing. My mind was racing. If my mother contested the will and lost, fine. Everything would go to charity, but at least she wouldn't get it. But what if she won? What if Hutchinson found some loophole, some technicality? There's more, Sarah said hesitantly. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but Derek's been talking to journalists. Journalists? I spun around to face her. About what? About you. About the family. He's trying to paint you as some kind of con artist who took advantage of a dying old man. Sarah's expression was pained. He's shopping the story around. Looking for someone who'll pay for an exclusive. I sat back down, my hands shaking. They weren't just coming for my inheritance. They were coming for my reputation, my future, everything. I won't let them do this, I said firmly. Grandfather trusted me with this. He knew they'd fight back. He must have known. Sarah nodded. So what are you going to do? I pulled out my phone and called Mr. Harrison. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Harrison, we need to meet, tomorrow. And I need you to bring every piece of documentation we have about my grandfather's mental state, his intentions and his relationship with my family. Is everything all right? Miss Morrison? He asked, concern in his voice. No, I said honestly. But it will be. The next morning, I met Mr. Harrison at his office downtown. He'd laid out dozens of documents across his conference table. Medical records, psychological evaluations, notarized statements, even video recordings of my grandfather explaining his wishes. Your grandfather was extremely thorough, Mr. Harrison explained, pointing to a stack of files. He anticipated that your family might challenge this. He spent months preparing evidence to protect you. I picked up one of the videos, dated just 8 months before he died. What's on this? Watch it, he said gently. I pressed play and my grandfather's face filled the screen. He looked tired but alert, sitting in his study with his lawyer beside him. My name is Robert William Morrison, he began, his voice clear and strong. I am 78 years old, of sound mind and body, and I am making this recording to clarify my intentions regarding my estate, specifically the inheritance of my granddaughter, Mia Elizabeth Morrison. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept watching. Mia is 22 years old as I record this. She has been the light of my life for over 2 decades. While my daughter, Rebecca, and my grandson, Derek, have chosen paths focused on wealth and status, Mia has chosen authenticity. She visits me every Tuesday without fail, not because she wants something, but because she genuinely cares. He paused, looking directly into the camera. I know my family will contest this will. I know they will claim I was manipulated or mentally incompetent. But I want it on record right here, right now, that I am making these decisions with complete clarity and purpose. The video continued for another 20 minutes. My grandfather detailed every conversation he'd had with my mother about me. How she'd called me unmotivated, irresponsible, a disappointment. How Derek had laughed about my art, calling it a waste of time. How my father had suggested they stop paying for my education because I wasn't studying business or law. They tried to break her spirit, my grandfather said. his voice rising with emotion. And when that didn't work, they tried to break her financially, but I won't let them. This inheritance isn't just money. It's freedom. It's proof that someone believed in her when no one else did. When the video ended, I was crying openly. Mr. Harrison handed me a tissue. "There are 6 more recordings like this," he said quietly, plus written statements from his doctors, his accountant, even his housekeeper. Everyone who knew him will testify that he was completely lucid and acting of his own free will. "My mother hired Gerald Hutchinson," I said, wiping my eyes. Mr. Harrison's expression hardened. "I know. He contacted me yesterday, fishing for information." "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. But I did inform him that if they proceed with contesting the will, I will personally ensure that every media outlet in the state receives copies of these recordings." He tapped the stack of videos. "Your grandfather's words will speak louder than any lie they try to tell." My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Derek just posted something on social media about you. It's bad." I opened my phone with trembling hands. Derek's post was public, shared across all his social media platforms. Thousands of people had already seen it. "My sister manipulated our dying grandfather into changing his will," it read. "While our family grieves, she's celebrating stolen wealth. This is what greed looks like." The comments were vicious. People I'd never met were calling me names, making assumptions, tearing apart my character based on lies. My stomach twisted. "This is defamation," Mr. Harrison said, reading over my shoulder. "We can sue him for this." But I had a better idea. "No," I said slowly, a plan forming in my mind. "We're going to let him keep talking. Let them all keep talking. And then we're going to show everyone the truth." 2 hours later, I was sitting in a media studio with a journalist from the state's largest newspaper. Mr. Harrison had arranged everything. I'd brought the videos, the documents, the evidence, everything my grandfather had prepared. "Tell me your story," the journalist said, her recorder running. So I did. I told her about the family meeting where they cut me off, about finding out my grandfather had protected me, about the videos he'd made, knowing his own family would try to destroy his wishes, about Derek's lies and my mother's desperation. "Why do you think your grandfather left everything to you?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. Because he knew I wouldn't use it to hurt people. He knew I'd use it to create something beautiful, to live authentically, to prove that success isn't just about money and status. "And what do you say to your family's claims that you manipulated him?" I smiled. "I say watch the videos. Listen to his words. My grandfather was the smartest, sharpest man I ever knew. Nobody manipulated him. He simply chose to reward love over greed." The article published 3 days later. The headline read, "The Grandfather Who Knew: How One Man Protected His Granddaughter from Family Greed." The videos went viral within hours. My phone exploded with messages. Friends I hadn't heard from in years reached out with support. Strangers sent encouragement. And my family? They went silent. Derek deleted his posts. My mother's lawyer quietly withdrew the contest. Aunt Linda called to apologize, though I didn't answer. I stood on the deck of my lakeside house, watching the sunset paint the water gold and pink. My grandfather had given me more than money. He'd given me proof that I was worth believing in, that I was worth fighting for, that I was worth loving. My phone buzzed one final time. A voicemail from my mother. I almost deleted it, but something made me listen. "Mia," her voice was broken, small. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I need you to know that I'm sorry." I deleted the message and looked back at the sunset. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. But I was finally free. And that was worth more than all the money in the world.